Om Prithvi Shantirantariksha Shantir Dyaus Shantir Disha Shantiravantara Disha Shantiragni Shantir Vayu Shantiraditya Shantish Chandrama Shantir Nakshatrani Shantirapa Shantiroshadaya Shantir Vanaspataya Shantir Gau Shantiraja Shantirashva Shantir Purusha Shantir Brahma Shantir Brahmana Shantir Shantireva Shanti Shantirame Astu Shantihi. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvasadbuddhimapnotu, sarvasarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our own hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Shanti 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 Harihi Om.
We will sing Manre Krishi Kachanana on pages 25 and 26.
Krishna
Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmayeti Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. Our subject today is this precious moment. I'd like to begin by sharing with you a story from Leo Tolstoy. Tolstoy is one of the, as we all know, considered one of the greatest authors ever. He lived from 1828 till 1910. So a little over 100 years ago that he passed away. Some of you may have, who have read Tolstoy's works, may have heard this story. It's a remarkable story because it drives home some of the very important points, and especially with regard to our topic today. So this story is about an emperor who once felt that if he had answers to 3 questions, it would help him administer his kingdom well. And these 3 questions were, what is the best time to do each thing? The second question was, who are the most important people to work with? And the third question was, what is the most important thing to do at all times? Clearly, for someone in the position of an emperor, or for that matter, there are hardly very few emperors left really worth their name today, but people who hold positions of power, these are very important questions. What is the most important time to do anything? Who are the most important people to work with? And what is the most important thing that needs to be done? And in some way, all of us may not be emperors, all of us may not have to administer a big country, but all of us do hold some positions of power, either at workplace, but certainly at our own home in some measure. Parents have some power, at least for a few years, over their children. And at the very least, we have a power over our own selves, administering this kingdom. So sometimes, in fact, in the Upanishads, sometimes each organ that we have, our hands, feet, our intellect, our mind, our emotions, this is like a kingdom in itself. And so long as every one of these entities is working in harmony, cooperating, if every system within the body and mind are cooperating with one another, this kingdom runs well. So at the very least, all of us are emperors of our own life, and oftentimes with people and things even beyond ourselves. So these are important questions to deal with. So since this story begins with the emperor as the reference, this emperor then announced a reward, that whoever can answer these 3 questions to his entire satisfaction would be given a reward. And of course, when you have a reward like this, a lot of people from far and near came to answer these questions. So some of the people said, among the answers, and clearly everyone had a different answer. So to the first question, some people said, well, the most important time to do anything is the time when you are free, when you are not occupied with something else. And how to know what is the most important time? Then they said, well, draw up a schedule. Get a good calendar app, maybe. But this was way back, way before the thing happened. And And some others said, well, if for someone like an emperor, it would be difficult to maintain the time on their own, they can have a good secretary who can then draw up appointments and then decide what is the most important time for any different activity. Most important people to work with, some people said, well, the emperor should try to find the most capable people, experts in the different fields. Those are the most important people to work with, and so on. Similarly, with regard to the most important thing to do, again, there were various answers, and among them, they said that the emperor would need to prioritize and decide which things need immediate attention and which things can wait, and so on. As it happened, that none of those answers completely resonated with the head and heart of that emperor. He somehow felt, now, I'm not fully satisfied with any of these answers. Now, just at the periphery of that kingdom, there was a big mountain, and on top of that mountain, a hermit lived. And he was said to be a very wise man. And he never came down from that mountain top and just led a very solitary life. The king had never met him, but he had heard that he was a very wise man. So the king decided, well, none of these answers satisfy me. I will go and meet that hermit and try to get answers to these questions. So then, that hermit was known to receive poor people, but consciously kept himself away from people with holding positions of power or wealth. And so then the king thought if he went to him as a king, the hermit might refuse to meet with him. So the king then disguised himself as a poor man and then decided to go up the mountain. And then he ordered his attendants to just wait at the foot of the mountain, and so that he climbed the mountain all by himself. It's quite a time. By the time he reached the top, he found a small hut that way. Outside the hut, he was because of these three questions. And he mentioned what those questions were and said, can you please give me an answer to these questions? The hermit just heard those questions, just smiled, but just continued to dig in their garden with the spade. The king just waited. Hopefully the answer would come, but nothing was forthcoming. The hermit continued to dig in the garden. And the king noticed the hermit was quite an elderly person. And the work was pretty quite taking its toll on him. So he then said, maybe I can help you. Why don't you take a little rest? And then the hermit thanked him and handed over the spade to him, and the hermit rested, while then the king started digging in those flower beds. A couple of hours passed by, and then in the meantime, the emperor is thinking, well, now as I'm working, the answers might come. Nothing came. And so after a couple of hours of working, then the emperor told the hermit, by the way, what about those answers to those three questions that I asked you? And then the hermit said, looks like you are tired. Now, why don't you take rest for a while I go? I will take up the spade and continue digging. But the king continued to dig himself. He didn't ask the hermit to come back and do the work. And another hour or two passed by which time the sun had begun to set, was about to get dark. And the king by that time realized, I don't think any answers are going to come. And so he just stopped and told the hermit, well, I have come really to receive answers to these three questions. If it's not possible for you to answer them, just let me know. I can just be on my way back to my home. just as he was saying those words, they heard a sound. And then the hermit told this emperor, he said, do you hear some sound? I see some person running here. And they indeed, out from the woods and the trees, they saw one man very wildly, frantically running toward them. And as that man came near, he just collapsed and fell in front. And they saw that this man was clutching at his stomach, and there was a deep wound, and he was bleeding profusely. So as soon as the king saw that, of course, he immediately cleaned the wound of that person, and there wasn't nothing to apply a bandage. So the king removed his own shirt and bandaged that wound. But the blood was so much coming out that he had to again take out that shirt, soak it dry, and apply and wind it again around that wound. You have to do that several times until the flow of blood stopped, by which time it had gotten really very dark. So the hermit and the emperor lifted this wounded man and took him inside the hut and put him on the hermit's bed. By which time, of course, that wounded man requested to ask for water. The king immediately ran out. There was a stream outside. He went and fetched some water and gave it to that wounded man. So the man drank that water and very soon just fell asleep. The king himself was extremely exhausted. So he was reclining against the door in one corner of the room. The king also fell asleep. And the hermit also probably fell asleep. So they all fell asleep. Next morning, as the sun rose, the king's eyes opened. And then for a while, the king was confused, like, where am I? And then he suddenly realized the events of the previous day. And then he looked at the room, and across the room on the bed, he saw that man of the previous day, the wounded man. And the man had got up by that time, and he was a little bit confused of where he is. And then that wounded person then looked a bit more carefully at the king and then recognized the emperor. And then in a very weak voice, that emperor told, the man told the emperor, please forgive me. And the emperor couldn't understand. Forgive you for what? And then that man said, oh, emperor, your highness, you do not know me, but I know you. And I'm your sworn enemy. And the emperor was puzzled. So this man then began to explain. He said, during the last war, your soldiers had come and come up. I said, this is my chance. So I hid myself into the woods with the idea that when you're on your way down from the mountain, I'm going to kill you. But the whole day passed, and then I didn't see you. And so then I thought, well, I'm not going to see you. So as I was coming down, your attendants who were waiting at the foot of the mountain, they saw me, they recognized me, and they started chasing me, and they attacked me. And this wound that I got was the attack that your men did. And to save myself, then I ran up the mountain again. And that's when I came and saw you here at the hut. And he said, what a paradoxical situation. I had come here yesterday with a firm determination to take your life, to kill you. And you are the one who actually saved my life. And he said, I will never forget this. I'll forever remain grateful to you. I will be your servant for all my life because you have given me a new birth. Not only I will also tell my children that when they grow up, they will be your loyal servants all through. And the king, of course, was very happy that that this enemy had gotten reconciled with him so easily. So immediately he asked his attendants who had come up by then searching for the king to call the royal physician, have this person treated well, told his attendants to take him home, return the property that was confiscated, and make sure that he was comfortable. And of course, he readily forgave that man for even conspiring to kill him. Then he goes to the hermit and said, well, quite a lot that happened since yesterday, but what about my questions? The 3 questions that I had come to you with. Could you please answer them before I go back? And then the king said, oh, but your questions have already been answered. And then the emperor was puzzled. He said, how? And then the hermit explained. He said, yesterday when you came up here, and you came up here and asked me the question, and you had pity on me. You saw an elderly person here digging in the garden, and you had pity and you offered to help me, and you began digging into the garden here. And he said, if you had not done so, if you had said, well, this person is not answering my question, and straight away if you had decided to return, that man was waiting for you in the woods. You would have died. You would have been killed. Then you would have regretted not staying back here. So at that time, that moment, that time was what you did, that was the right thing to do. So the best time to do was, the best time that you had was the time you were working in the garden. And the most important person was me, that is the hermit. And he said the most important thing to do at that time was to help me, which you did. And then he said later on, when this wounded man came up to us, at that time, the best time, the most important time was at that moment you spent trying to serve that patient, to serve that wounded man. At that time, that man, wounded man, was the most important person. And the most important thing was that you were taking care of him. Because he said, if you had not done so, if you had cared like, well, I don't even know who this person is, why should I even help that person? Then that person would have died, and you would have missed the chance to reconcile with an enemy. And so that wounded man was the most important person, and the service that you did to him was the most important thing. And then the hermit concluded by saying that in the lives of all of us, the most important time is now. Because this present moment is the only moment we have. And the most important person in our life is the person who is near us at that moment. And the most important thing to do at any given moment is the right thing to do at that moment. And this advice is so relevant. This advice my place and context. Life. Sometimes when we see that, think about time, there are many of us may have experienced this, that the people whom we have known in life, and some of the people whom we have known may no longer be with us. Either they have moved to a distant place, or maybe some of them have passed away. Now, we remember them. Now, the memories of our past play an important role in our lives. But we also know that things that have passed, things that have gone, are never going to come back. Whatever happened yesterday, but yesterday has gone. You may still remember it, but it's gone. It's never going to come back. And sometimes this can be extremely heart-wrenching. Some people have expressed it that way, and many of us have experienced it. For instance, I know a friend who said that that oftentimes years after his parents passed away, he said that sometimes when he just thinks in his mind, he just remembers the way his mom used to call him or address him. And he says, suddenly he feels so emotional. He says that never am I ever going to hear that the way my mom or my dad or whoever used to call me. That's gone. That's gone forever. Yeah, the memory is there, but that thing is never going to happen again. Now that's true with every moment in our lives. Every moment, this moment that we are, this moment that we are breathing in and breathing out, this is the only moment that's real. Because the very next moment, this moment has gone. It's never going to come back. And the next moment which is to come has not yet come. And this was one of the teachings of the Buddha, that yesterday has gone, tomorrow is not yet come. The only time we can really live is today. That's all. And if we miss that, then we are not really living. We are maybe still breathing, but we are not living. How often, when we are engrossed in some thought, thinking about something that has gone by yesterday or last year or 10 years ago or whenever, or anxious about something that is not yet come, but worried about the future, we may completely ignore the person right in front of us. And life becomes very unreal then. And sometimes we might have seen that happen. As either as when we were children, and let's say a dad or mom who has just come back from work or come from outside, and as little children, you go and hug your mom and dad, and you say something excitedly, but they are so worried, they are so thinking about something, they are not even paying attention to you. And then you just feel like, what? I'm just saying something and my dad and mom don't even care. And this may happen to you when you are dads and moms yourself. When your little child or your grandchild comes to you and says something, and if that moment you are thinking of something else, you are not fully present. And just as you have not forgotten some of the things when you felt ignored by others, these little children are not going to forget that either. And so that's why the best moment is the moment that we have right now. And the most important person is the person right in front of us. Because for all we don't even know, think about it this way. And this we have talked about this before, that life is so fragile, life is so uncertain. We would all want to live for long, and through God's grace, hope we all do. But we also know that none of us knows when that last moment is going to come. When that last day is going to come. As I have mentioned on earlier occasions, it's a idea that this could be. But there is a We don't know. I can tell you something from my own life. When I came here about 20 years ago, a year after I came to Boston, my father passed away. And I was still here. And therefore, the last time I saw my own father was when he had come to see me at the airport when I came to Boston. And so, not too long after I received the news of my father's passing, and as it so often happens, when someone nearby, someone near to you, so close to you, goes away, you think about, you don't plan to think about things, but memories do come. And one of the things that did come to my mind several times, and it does come even today, years later, was that last time I saw my father. I bowed down at his feet, took his blessings, and then I passed through the security check, saw him from a distance. That's so clear. But then I also knew, I didn't know then that was the last time I was going to see him. I had no idea. But then that last moment is still etched in my mind. Now, I mention this to show that whenever we meet any person in life, that might be the last time we might be seeing that person. And therefore, the person, that's why this story is so helpful, that at any given moment in the course of our day, we meet with so many people. And it's not too much of an effort, too much of an exertion to be fully there for that person in front of you. That what you might see that person only for a minute or two, but even then at that moment, if you are there fully, not thinking about the past or worried about the future, but right there at that moment, that's the greatest service you can do to that person, and actually that's the greatest service you can do to yourself. So that's why this story is so important. Now, what are the things that prevent us from always being present? And it's the tyranny of time. Time is time creates a great illusion in our minds. Think about it this way. What is really time? Most of us, when we think about time, we just think about time in terms of what you see in a clock. But that's not time. That's just a kind of a measure, an artificially created measure of time. We have hours, minutes, seconds, and then days and months and years. These are some kind of landmarks or markings we have made. But time itself doesn't have any divisions. We create those divisions. And one of the divisions in time that we have created is this idea of past, present, and future. That things which have gone are past, things which are not yet come are future, and this moment is the only present. This kind of division of time into past, present, and future, however practical and useful it might be in many other contexts, oftentimes prevents us from truly living our life. Because if we think carefully, we might discover that most of our time we are not in the present tense at all. Most of our time, either we are thinking about the past, the memories of the past. And by past, it doesn't necessarily mean a very distant past. It could be even as much as what happened this morning, what happened last night, what happened last week, or it could be what happened a few years ago. But if you kind of keep a logbook, I know it's not possible, it's maybe too cumbersome to do so, but if we choose to do it even in the course of a single day, we will see how often we are thinking about what has gone back, just the memory, dealing with memories. And when we are not dealing with memories, We're thinking about tomorrow. We're thinking about all our anxieties, all the things that worry us about the future. And the future is uncertain. None of us knows what's going to happen in the future. And therefore, it might seem as if anxiety about the future is kind of normal. Normal or not, we do dwell, we do worry about the future, and we do think about the past. Now, none of these things is done very voluntarily. It's not like we consciously, I mean, if we want, we can sit and think about the past consciously. But almost all of the time, it's a very unconscious process. And we might discover that while every moment of our past, something or the other has been happening in our life, it's not every little thing that comes to mind. Only a few things, a few specific things that happen. I mean, for instance, say, what happened yesterday? Well, yesterday many things happened, but not every little thing will come to your mind. Only a few specific instances will come to mind. And a few specific instances will trouble us of the past. Now, we might therefore ask ourselves, among the many things that happened in my past, why is it that only a few things keep on coming to the mind again and again, repeatedly? And one of the ways of understanding that is that just as food that we eat is meant to nourish us, the food that we eat, the food that we are able to digest, nourishes us. The food that we are not able to digest creates a problem. And then that problem remains until somehow we get rid of that undigested material. Now, all the experiences we have in life is the food that our whole personality is meant to consume. All the experiences, that's why it is said experience is the best teacher, but the best teacher only if we are good students. Now, those experiences we have had in our life, which we have been able to digest well, have made us stronger. So if we find that we are more mature today than we were when we were years ago, it's because of the experiences that we have digested, which is why we have become more mature. We have greater understanding. Now, some of the experiences that we have had in the past, somehow we have not been able to digest. And because we have not been able to digest them yet, those are the ones that keep on popping up in the mind. And unless and until I'm able to digest them well, they'll keep popping up. And as long as they keep popping up, memories of the past will continue to invade into my present. So we'll have to find a way of dealing with these undigested experiences of the past. That's the only way we can free ourselves from the hold the past has over us. Same thing with regard to future. As I said, future is uncertain. None of us knows, but people can make predictions. Sometimes they may come true, sometimes they don't. But no one can say for sure what exactly is going to happen. And that which is why this uncertainty creates a kind of insecurity within us. Now, what is it that will make a future secure? Many of us feel that if I have a good balance in the bank, if I have good savings, that will bring some amount of security. And there is some amount of truth in it, no doubt about it. But we know that financial security itself might help me in some ways, but there are certain things in which a mere financial security is not enough. There are problems in life which merely money cannot solve. We know what insecurity can do when we read about a big storm or something which is to come. Suddenly find people rushing to Stop and Shop and just kind of buying up stuff as if, which I'm not saying they shouldn't do it, but these are all signs of anxiety. Like, what if I can't go on shopping? What if I'm kind of locked up in my home? What if there is 20 feet of snow? I can't go out, so I need to have enough food to eat. So all these planning for the future is good. This is not to say we shouldn't plan for the future. But even the planning for the future is done in the present. For a spiritual seeker, the best security that a spiritual seeker has is faith in the Spirit, faith in God. Because, as they sometimes say, God is the only bank which never fails, doesn't need a bailout. All of the securities there's all the supports that we have in life, they are good as far as they can take us, but they are all fragile. The only security that never fails. And we can see that in the lives of all these great ones who depended so much on their spiritual ideal, on God or on the Spirit or the Atman, something which is unshaken in itself. They were able to deal with these inevitable ups and downs and uncertainties of life in a much, much confident way than the rest of us do. And therefore, the best way to deal with the anxiety about future is to become a little bit like truly a child of God. The image that always comes to my mind is of a little baby sleeping in her mother's lap. And I've often said this, that a little baby in her mother's lap never passes sleepless nights, never worries about, what will I do tomorrow? Will I get my milk or not? A little baby doesn't worry, because a little baby completely is fully dependent on the mother and knows my mother is there. I don't have to worry about it. And we were all little babies, remember? We were all babies once. That's only when we grew up that we suddenly kind of got this, I need to take care of myself. Who else will take care of me? Which is not wrong. But what I'm saying is, in the larger picture, our God as the mother, God as father, is still very much present. And one who is conscious of that, it's not as if that person will not experience stress and anxiety, but that person will be able to overcome the stress and anxiety much more quickly, much more easily than the rest of us can. Swami Ramakrishnananda, the great disciple of Ramakrishna, once said that the presence of anxiety and stress in our life is an indication that our faith in God has not become strong yet. So it's easy to say, oh, I depend fully on the Lord. And it's easy, and it's not that we are necessarily we oftentimes, when we say that, we try to mean it, and we sometimes hope that's true. But the best way to know how much I depend on God, the best way to measure the extent of my dependence on the spiritual ideal is to just look deep in our heart and find out how insecure I feel. Because if I become like a little child, completely dependent on only the one truth, one being in the world who never fails, there is no reason why I should be anxious about anything. There is this great verse in the Gita. It goes like this: Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janaha paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Which means, to that person, Ananyas chintayanto mam means that person whose mind dwells in the highest being, in the highest reality, in the spiritual reality, to the exclusion of everything that is perishable. Ye janaha paryupasate, who is able to see that same truth reflected in everyone. Tesham nitya abhiyuktanam, to such a person who is always connected with that deepest truth of our being, yogakshemam vahamyaham. The promise that Krishna gives is, it's this universal mystery, if you like, or the grace of God, if you like, makes sure that such a person who is whose ego has completely gone out of the way and is completely identified with that highest being, whatever this person needs comes to that person. Whatever this person has is preserved. In other words, if at any time any spiritual seeker feels, well, it's all right to say meditate and study and all of that, but I still have got to work. Who will do all the work if I sit and meditate all the time? Who will pay my bills? If I don't go to work tomorrow, I will lose my job. I would love to meditate whole day, but I can't. To that, Krishna says, if at all I reach a stage when my mind is so immersed in my spiritual practice that I become incapable of carrying out my so-called duties and responsibilities in life, I don't have to worry. Whatever things that need to be done will be got done through ways, oftentimes in very unexpected ways, in a very unexpected form. And that's what we call grace. And what is grace? That's something that happens in a most unexpected way in an unexpected time. People who are worldly call it just coincidence. People who are devoted, people who are spiritual say, see there the hand of God, see there God's grace. So one of the things as Vedanta students we need to pay special attention to is this hold of the past and the future on our own lives, and recognize that the only time we really live is now. Because the future is unknown, has not yet come. The past has gone, never to come back again. And so sometime you will see, think about it this way. If we look back at the last 10 years or 20 years of our lives, they seem to have gone pretty fast. But when we think about the next 10 years or the next 20 years, it seems like a long time, which really doesn't make sense. If my last 10 years have gone back so quickly, there is no reason why the next 10 years should be any slow. And that's the trick the mind plays on us. So rather than worry about the past and the present, let's make an effort to digest every experience that lives give us. And digesting that experience simply means learning from it. Every experience that we have is meant to teach us something. The moment we learn the lesson, that experience will stop bothering us. The moment, as long as we refuse to learn the lessons of our own experiences, it will just keep on bothering us. So that's simple. So if anything of the past is bothering me, all that we need to do is look at those experiences straight into their eye and say, what were you meant to teach me? And as soon as you learn the lesson, that's the thing. When we are not able to do it ourselves, then sometimes we need to take the help of a therapist. And what does the therapist do? You tell your experiences to the therapist, and the therapist will guide you or help you, assist you in how to digest those experiences. So we might need external help, but sooner or later, at some point, every one of us may have to become strong enough to be our own therapists, so that we, instead of depending on someone else to help us digest our own experiences, it's like this. The food that you eat, your doctor can't digest it for you. The doctor can help you, say, do this, and the problem will go away. Similarly, the experiences that we have had in our lives, only we can digest them. The others can only help us do so. So that's the ideal. That's the goal. A part of the spiritual practice, think about it this way. Most of the spiritual practice that we have to do, at least in the initial stages, has very little to do with the spirit. The problems that we experience as spiritual seekers in the beginning, very few of them are truly spiritual problems. Most of them are really psychological. Most of them are just making peace with our past, learning from our past, freeing the hold the future has on us, and living in the present. And the more we succeed in just living in the present, we will find spiritual life becomes much smoother. And why is meditation so difficult? Why do we say I'm getting distracted? What are we distracted by during meditation? Either something that has gone by, or what happened yesterday, so I'm not able to do my japa well, or what I'm going to do tomorrow. Again, it's past and future which intrudes upon my present and affects the quality of my prayer, my meditation. So this is very, very significant, because the only meditation we can do, the only real prayer we can do, is only when we are in this moment. And therefore, this particular moment is very precious. It's so precious that even if you wait for one moment, you already lost it, because that moment is gone. And what is life but just a collection of these moments? Our entire life is nothing but one moment coming after another moment. And we keep on losing these moments because I'm just worried about something that has already happened, or worried about something that had not yet happened. Then these moments are continually going by. So entire life can go by, and then we look back at our life and find, I haven't lived. It just went by like zoop, it's gone. And a great regret can come then. It's maybe too late by that time. So we need to wake up right now and remember these three questions that emperor asked are very vital questions of great relevance to all of us. That the best moment in the lives of all of us is this particular moment, present moment. The best person we have to deal with in life is the person who is right in front of us. Even if that meeting is going to be only for 30 seconds or 1 minute, we have to be fully present there. And the best thing to do at any given moment is at that moment, do the right thing. Do what is good, do what is right at every moment, which really requires that we remain alert always. The moment you lose that alertness, already few moments have gone by. A little chunk of your life has been gone. It's wasted. It's gone and it's never going to come back. It cannot be recovered. And therefore, every moment is precious. And we need to make special effort to see that these moments, which are so precious, are not wasted, are not lost. Om Janani Gurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. Next Sunday is a special Easter service, and for the Satsang, a topic will be, who is thy neighbor? That will be next Sunday. On Wednesday, we will continue with the study of the Gita. We're presently studying chapter 18. That will be at 7:30 on Wednesday. And on Tuesday and Saturday, our Arati and meditation will also continue as usual. So we'll conclude with a prayer on page 3. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.